Welcome to the fifth video of the modification and lifting presentation. Suspension modifications. In addition to holding up the vehicle, the suspension is built to control movement of wheels and the parts that move with them, like the axles. This is called the suspended weight. In general, it's best that the suspended weight is as small as possible. Unfortunately, it's difficult to keep the suspended weight low, but you can try and get lighter tires and lighter rims. Another thing to aim for is to keep the point of gravity as low as possible. Think of the Hummer. Sitting in it makes you almost feel you're skiing on the ground. Low weight distribution has a lot to say on how the suspension behaves. Try and store heavy things as low as you can and only use the roof to store light objects. Driving on sideways slopes is riskier for higher vehicles where the center of gravity is closer to the lower wheel. This transfers weight more to the lower wheels and moves traction from the upper wheels. This is also why lifting your 4x4 as little as you can is so important. Highway suspension should make sure that wheels stay on the smooth and level paved road. For the suspension it means high resistance to sideways rolling, short suspension, firm shocks, balanced compression between throttle and brakes. Off-road suspension is a little bit different. There you want to keep a firm grip on terra firma, and making the suspension work with the shape of the track should be the most important consideration for a 4x4. Here are the major suspension points to consider: low resistance to sideways movement, long suspension, soft shocks, suspension compression under increased throttle. These points make the wheel travel longer and increase grip when you need it. You could also remove the balance bar to increase sideways movement. This will make the truck feel a bit uncomfortable in turns, but believe it or not, it makes your 4x4 more stable. The leaf spring system has been around a long time, but is considered by many to be too rough for serious off-roading. To get a softer ride on those rough roads, you need proper suspension. Preferably all tires should touch the ground at all times to provide the necessary traction. The Coil Spring is a good solution. Coil Spring suspension provides the tire the least restricted travel, especially in a downhill direction. The biggest drawback to the Coil Spring is that loading capacity is generally lower than leaf spring systems. But to get the absolutely best suspension, consider air springs. With air springs you can adjust the air pressure of each airbag when carrying various load levels. So my suspension recommendation is use a whole axle up front as well as back, of course. Use radius arms with coil springs or air springs for the front suspension. Use 4-link air springs for the rear suspension. Next up, steering considerations.